History was made in Lloydminster this weekend as the head of the Ahmadiyya Muslim faith, the Caliph, was in town for the inauguration of the local Ahmadiyya mosque. Josh Ryan with more on the Caliph's visit, which local leaders say has already made an impact in the border city.
Those in attendance for His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad's address to Lloydminster were overcome by his presence.
Those that were here yesterday when he arrived here, and each moment that he has spent here, people have been, literally overwhelmed by emotions.
Since I was here on my tour to Canada, so I felt it appropriate. While going to Calgary, I stop over here and visit Lloydminster.
The Caliph also met with local dignitaries, surprising them with his interest and background in farming.
I had an opportunity to discuss agriculture to a great extent, and it was an incredible experience as he was asking about the farming practices in our area.
The Caliph is continuing to tour Canada to share the true teachings of Islam.
If you summarize the true teaching of Islam in 2 sentences, that is to love your Creator and discharge His duties, and you love your fellow beings and discharge their duties you owe to them.
While His Holiness said he understands why some people remain fearful of Islam given the state of world affairs, he hopes that communities like Lloydminster will continue to open their minds and hearts.
If you have a good message, something good to be presented to people, people do accept it. And I hope they will accept it.
To be able to understand someone else is the key. I think that's the most important part. That comes from communication.
The Caliph said he was very happy and satisfied with his experience in Lloydminster and believes the Ahmadiyya Muslim community will continue to flourish in years to come.
And when I see the mosque is here now, we'll have the more opportunity to portray our true teachings to our surrounding and in the neighborhood.
And Imam Tariq Azim believes that His Holiness's visit will help build the relationship between the Muslim community and surrounding area.
People who had not heard about Ahmadiyya Muslim community, who had not heard the message of Islam, that is love for all, hatred for none, through his visit, through the inauguration of this mosque, this message has reached them.
Josh Ryan, Newcap News.
Local business owners and community members heard an update on the Little Pine Casino development at the Lloydminster Rotary meeting today. A representative spoke on where development stands and how the finished casino will benefit the community.
It's not just the First Nations that ultimately benefit from this, it's also the non-First Nations.
The CEO of Little Pine Business Developments added that the casino will add millions of dollars to the local economy.
We're probably looking at revenues of about $50 million a year out of that casino, and probably a net spend back in the community of about 35 to 40 million. So that on its own, most of that gets reinvested right back into the community, and that's just annual operations, let alone the construction effort.
Schemenauer said local businesses are hired for the vast majority of the construction, but they're uncertain when the casino will be done.
It's completely up in the air at this point. We really don't know. If we get the pilings in this fall, hopefully the casino's operational by about next October. But of course, if it's not done by that time, we could face a 6 months delay.
The Petro-Canada gas station located at the casino site is on schedule to open January 1st. Well, it's a time of year that all Canadians take a moment to commemorate, but as time goes by, there's been some concern that today's generation won't understand fully what Remembrance Day is about. In this week's edition of Retrospect, Gina Martin shows us how youth are remembering.
Remembrance Day is facing a problem.
As time goes by, what happens is that memories tend to blur, and the particular relevance of the sacrifice made by Canadians in both World Wars and the Korean War tends to fade.
While November 11th remains important to many people, it may be losing its meaning to others.
We've now gone through, I guess, a very, thankfully, an extended period of peace in Canada, and we've also had a bit of a time lately where the armed forces have not been showing their best, so it's difficult for people to remember the sacrifice that was made 50 and 80 years ago.
Many schools are taking it upon themselves to emphasize the holiday's importance to the younger generation. Students are not in class on Remembrance Day, so ceremonies are held the day before.
And Remembrance Day services in the school bring it to their level and in such a way that they can personally relate to it and keep the memory alive.
Some veterans feel they may be the key to keeping the memories alive.
Your best advice, I would say, to get a hold of all the old veterans one at a time and talk to them, and then you'll be able to get a little history from each one separate.
As we once again approach November 11th, schools across Lloydminster continue to honor the fallen. Last week, hundreds of students and members of their family attended a packed gymnasium at Holy Rosary High School for a Remembrance Day prayer service.
It's always nice to see the respect that the youth can show for the veterans and those who were in the war. As the wars get further away, some people just don't have that same type of a connection, so it's very important to have these Remembrance Day services.
It shows all these students the importance of Remembrance Day. I know you have to repeat it every year, but it's the thought that really matters.
That's all for Retrospect this week. I'm Gina Martin.
Well, another NDP term could be catastrophic and irreversible to the province. This from PC leadership hopeful Jason Kenney, who says they need to bury the hatchet with the Wildrose Party in order to beat Rachel Notley and the NDP in 2019. Kenney was in Lloydminster on Sunday talking to constituents about why he thinks it's important to unite the two parties. He says the border city is a perfect example of how Saskatchewan is doing better than Alberta.
The difference is the government. You've got a free enterprise government in Saskatchewan that's open for business and encouraging investment, and a socialist government in Alberta that's against business and investment, and the consequence is 25% higher unemployment on the west side of the border.
Kenney says he's the only leadership candidate who wants to unite Albertans, along with the only candidate who opposes the carbon tax. He adds if he can get the PCs on a unity track, he'll look to add the Wildrose next.
80% of grassroots Wildrose and progressive conservative voters are telling pollsters they would like to see one united free enterprise party.
So far, there are 6 people running for the leadership with the election next spring. Well, one Lloydminster man diagnosed with schizophrenia at the age of 26 has written a book breaking down misconceptions of mental illness. An Individuals Innocence tells the story through the eyes of a man living with undiagnosed schizophrenia.
This is a message of hope for both society and people who have mental illness, because I mean, every day I see 3 apparitions that aren't there. I hear them every day, and I'm on medication, and it's, it's one of those things that it's like we deal with it every day, but we're trying to send the message out to say, let us out. We're just normal people.
Yo pulled from his own struggles and experiences after he was admitted to hospital for treatment in 2005. Throughout the book, Yo says there is one message he wanted to get across to people living with mental illness.
And I'm trying to say to them is it's only a diagnosis, it's not a life sentence. You can be a productive member of society, you can achieve your dreams and goals, and that's really where I'm trying to go with it.
An Individuals Innocence is available now online on the Friesen Press website.